Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Good morning and welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, our guest is a hypnotherapist. Is that right?
Yeah. I go by both hypnotherapist, hypnotist. It's all.
The recording has stopped.
They all mean the same thing, actually. So
okay. I wanted to make sure. I thought you had all the credentials, but I was like, wait a minute, because I saw hypnotist in your. Okay.
So it's all the same thing, and it depends on the organization what you get to call yourself. I am not a licensed social worker, psychologist, so some of my certifications say hypnotherapist, some of them say hypnotist. So I go back and forth and use them interchangeably. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I had it right before we officially.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello and welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today we have an awesome guest who is a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist. She goes by both. Her name is Kimberly Lynne. Kimberly has been a certified hypnotist for over 5 years and has hundreds of happy clients. She has witnessed in countless lives the incredible impact hypnosis makes in an individual's life. Her personal journey with hypnosis, I'm struggling on my words today, people, began when she overcame 20 years of chronic pain, anxiety, and panic attacks. Professionally, she has trained with many hypnosis greats, which has numerous certifications and various awards and accomplishments. She now specializes in stress and anxiety relief, burnout prevention and recovery, and in self-empowerment. Kimberly's mission is to provide hypnotherapy that addresses the root causes of the individual's problem to ensure complete healing and create the right environment for a healthier and more fulfilling life. Mm-hmm. So, Kimberly, anything I forgot that you would like to correct or anything you want to add about your certifications?
No, you did a great job. One of the words that is going to be really important today that I do have on my website, but it doesn't always go in my bio, is that I am a trauma-informed hypnotist, which means I ask the question, what happened to you, not what is your diagnosis? And I practice a holistic approach, which is mind, body, spirit. So I try to help people address all the parts of them to make sure that they get full healing.
That's so awesome. So that's why we are so aligned. And whenever I hear practitioners talk about root causes, that's a signal to me like, oh, they get it. They get that a lot of times what our struggles are there because of past trauma. Would you agree with that?
I would. My philosophy is that we all came in to this world, we're born basically just fine. It's all the things that happen along the way. And as a hypnotist, I think of a lot of the events that we either call big T trauma, little t trauma. They are installing programs in our subconscious mind, and they're not a part of the original person. So as a hypnotist, I have the privilege of going and helping people remove those extraneous programs, that extra baggage.
Right. How did you get interested in this field?
Well, I was thinking about it. It's funny. I was on a healing journey myself, I think as a lot of different kinds of healers are. And I had 20 years of chronic pain, and then some life events came along, and I developed severe anxiety and panic attacks where I was drifting out of my body, losing control of the car, and other such things. And so this was really not okay. And I had already done a lot of other things, very Western medicine things, good things, but nothing really ever helped any of my problems. And so I tried all the metaphysical, woo-woo, Reiki, acupuncture, energy healing, all those things when the anxiety and panic began, and those were making me feel better, but they just weren't quite getting to that root cause. And I was introduced to the concept of hypnosis through social media somehow as I was in those kinds of spheres. And for the first 6 months, I thought to myself, that's crazy. I can't believe people do that. That's just the fakest thing ever. But after I tried everything, I thought, well, I have nothing left to lose. But I was too afraid to go to a hypnotist because of all the previous negative perceptions that I've been given, the incorrect perceptions about hypnosis. So I consciously thought, this looks really reputable. I found a great hypnotist, but I just couldn't get myself there. So I decided to become a trained hypnotist, fix myself, and who knows, maybe I'll help other people. And it immediately started helping me. So I became a true believer. Hypnosis really, truly saved my life. It did a 180. All of my anxiety and panic went away within just a few weeks, and my body began to heal. So that in a nutshell is how I got into hypnosis. And since becoming a hypnotist, the kinds of people that I get in my office, a lot of them have much more severe trauma than I would identify myself as having. And it has really become a theme for a lot of my clients to have trauma. And so I decided, well, I need to become an expert in this and understand it more. Now I know, yes, I do have trauma just like they do, but especially the kind of trauma where women are survivors of sexual assault or violence. I did not identify with that group until I became educated and realized, yes, I'm just like almost every other woman in America, which is we've all kind of been victims of sexual violence. And so it's become something that's really important to me and makes me get really angry and want to stick up for people and get and just and
So
like shout it from
advocate.
yes, I just want to shout it from the rooftops. It just makes me so angry. So yeah.
Yeah, it's what's interesting, I specialized in trauma for over 25 years now, and I'm still learning. Like it's such a vast field, not only because of all the different traumas that we can have, but how complex it can be. And with my client this morning, she told me about this code word you can use at a restaurant or a bar, and it's requesting an angel shot.
Yes, I have heard of that.
I had not heard of that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm still learning. So I immediately shared it with my daughters, and I shared it with my Facebook group, and people are like, yeah, I have not heard of this. This is so helpful.
I just say thank God for social media, thank God for TikTok, because that's where I learned all that. And I also learned, this just came to mind too, there's a special hand signal I saw. So I have to do a little bit more research on maybe trafficking victims use when they're out in public behind their back. I don't know much about it. I've just seen a little bit of it. You might even know more about it than I do, but thank God for social media. I think it's actually really helped women rally support for each other and educate each other. And I think it's great.
Yes, that's like my Facebook group is a free offering I do, and it's to educate and to inspire, instill hope into people. And I feel like the podcast does that too, I don't just have people come on sharing their traumas, but sharing how they're healing from it and what healing tools are available. So I am proud to say that Kimberly is going to be one of our speakers at my October summit called Finding Connection After Relationship Trauma. Kimberly, can you say a little more on why you'd be interested in speaking at a summit such as this one?
Yes. Like I said a few minutes ago, did not identify myself as a survivor of sexual violence until I became educated. And then I realized that it's happened countless times in my life. I might not have a real big event, a signature event like other people have survived, but I too, just like, I think I'm part of that larger group of women who are not in the statistics. Some statistics say, 1 in 4 or 1 in 6 women have been victims of rape and survivors of rape. But if we actually count every single time a woman has been harassed or catcalled, touched without consent, manipulated, the numbers would be much, much higher. And these things are traumatic as well, especially when they happen when they're young. And that's when these kinds of things happen to me. The very first time I was ever touched without consent was when I was 12 years old, and I was an early developer, and a boy came up to me at the roller rink. I was roller skating, and it was 1989, and touched me and made gestures, and it was, I think back then I just kind of thought, well, that's just boys. I mean, it's rude, but I wouldn't have thought of myself as a survivor of that. But it really is such an impactful event, and it happens so often, and it's just so normalized. So this is the perspective that I'm coming from, and I want to encourage other women who might be like me, who think that they may not have experienced these things, to, number one, become more aware so that they can just address their own issues, but also be more supportive of the women who are coming forward and are saying they are survivors of physical assault and violence, so that we can all support each other and stop victim blaming. And the victim blaming really bothers me. The way that we, in our culture, we perpetuate the idea that it just doesn't happen very often. Most of the women are lying. They were kind of asking for it. It's so unfortunate these myths exist. So my presentation is going to be about myths about sexual violence, and how we can be supportive of each other, and so be more aware and support.
Yeah, I feel so blessed that you're gonna come in and do this education on this, because I have to say it is really difficult. I understand why it happens. I've done a lot of studies on feminism, and women are very much a part of the patriarchy too. That's what our conditioning is, and it's really unfortunate when we turn on each other and don't advocate for each other.
Yeah.
Because we really could be a sisterhood, and more change would happen if more women spoke out and supported each other. 100%. I do believe more change would happen.
Yeah. I agree with you completely. And there just needs to be a lot. We need to get rid of that shame emotion completely and believe and support each other. Because there's just no reason for a woman. It just doesn't make sense for her to lie about it. It's got to be so small that it's uncalculable how many women are really lying about what happens to them. And
really small number.
And we so easily disregard it. And it's just a myth. It's just the stereotype. It's just perpetuated, unfortunately. And so it's just easier for us to believe that, because it's so uncomfortable to believe the truth, that it's so common, and that it's so easy to be a victim, and that intelligent, strong people, women and men sometimes too, are being victims, and surviving. So we need to educate.
Perfectly said. So I would love to hear, and I know this might be putting you on the spot a bit, and if so, we'll work through that, or it may not. You might be ready. But the next question I have is, I would love to hear about maybe a case study of a trauma survivor that you worked with. What was the type of trauma she had, and how has your work made a difference for her? I know you have stories, but I don't know if you have one maybe ready.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I actually should have prepared for that. I have quite a few. I'll talk about the one that's most recent. She's most in my brain. I'm actually working with her very recently. I'm just finished, and she is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and was really struggling with disassociation. Now, as a hypnotist, I practice hypnotherapy, and so I do call myself a hypnotherapist, but I don't diagnose, and I don't actually treat any diagnosable illnesses. What I do is I help my clients address these stressful, negative feelings, release the pressure, neutralize those, fix programs, the belief that, for instance, it might have been your fault or that you deserved it. And then what happens is it sort of lets the pressure out internally and they begin to heal, right? Because we're removing the unhealthy beliefs surrounding what happened to them. And so working with this woman, these clients, they typically take a little bit longer than like what I'd say the average client who might come to me for habit control or weight loss or something like that. We had about 11 sessions. And when she first came to me, she had been married for 30 plus years, really struggling with intimacy, couldn't talk about conflict or feelings without feeling like she was disassociating. And it's taken quite a while for her to begin to feel safe, but she has been able to first had an awareness of when she was disassociating, and then began to work on consciously redirecting and reframing those moments so that she could be present. And she just feels so much stronger and so much more able to trust and be intimate and discuss things that are conflicting with her spouse, because for her whole marriage up until now, these things were basically impossible. And her spouse was feeling like he could never talk about his feelings. He could never bring up conflict because his emotional needs couldn't get met, because she could never talk about it, because the moment that it started, her mind would just go elsewhere because it was so scary and triggering to her. So it's been life-changing for her in her marriage. And her husband actually did come up to me and thank me as well, because he's really pleased with just how much closer they feel and how much they're able to talk so much more. And I really do believe, just like all the other healing modalities, hypnosis and what I do is just one chapter of the journey. And so obviously eventually when my work with her is done, she might go on to another modality. She does a lot of things. And so she's ready to build skills as well. And one of the things I kind of likened to her in one session is that when you begin having an autopilot program of disassociating, the moment something scary comes in, you stop developing the skill to deal with the conflict, even when it's safe. And so once you start feeling your feelings again in the moment, it's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable than it used to be, because you weren't present, you weren't dealing with it. So you're going to feel those feelings, and it's time to build skills, right? We have to learn to communicate. We have to learn to navigate conflict. These are things that all adults eventually have to learn to do. But when we are disassociating, for instance, or using substances, we don't build the skills that we need. So she's at that point where she's ready to start doing that. And so again, like I said, there's more for her to do, but she feels much more capable and empowered to do that.
That was a really beautiful case example. So thanks for sharing that with us. And so I know you do one-on-one, but do you do any group sessions? Do you do any courses, workshops, or is it just one-on-one?
It is mostly just one-on-one. You have to really check in with me. I'll have an occasional workshop. The wonderful thing about workshops is that they do allow people to dip their toes into hypnosis and see if it's for them. But with hypnosis and the way I look at human beings is that it's not a one-off, right? Just like therapy is just not a one-session deal. And so I'm working on doing more, let's just say that. But I'm 5 years in, and so I'm slowly developing that. So yeah, more workshops are to come in the future.
Awesome. I would love if you would keep in touch with my community so I could add those to the show notes or send out emails to help support survivors. I love trauma survivors that have many, many choices and healing modalities, because what works for one person doesn't work for another. And sometimes it just takes many things to try before we really start to feel like we're healing well. So exactly. I'm glad that you offer a couple of different things. And if someone were to want to know you a little better, where would they go to learn more about you?
You can find me on all those of your favorite social media platforms. I'm kind of try to exist everywhere, and it should direct you back to my website, which is KimberlyLynneHypnosis.com. You can schedule a free consultation there. Every person that I work with does a consultation for free up front, because you have to figure out if you like me. I have to be able to find out if you're a good fit. I mean, because hypnosis isn't a good fit for everybody. And there's multiple reasons why. So it requires me having a good understanding, a good overview of what you're trying to do and what your goals are and what you're dealing with, for me to know if you're a good fit for what I do. So it's totally free and no obligation. Got to figure out if we like each other, we want to work together. So you can do that on my website. And I also have a YouTube channel too. So, and I'm hoping to be posting there soon more. So you can check in there.
Okay. We'll have all of Kimberly's links in the show notes. And also, she's going to be a speaker at the next summit. The next summit is called, again, Healing Connections After Relationship Trauma. And Kimberly is going to be one of our amazing speakers. And I want to give the dates, October 17th and 18th. And by the time this podcast is published, the registration links will be in the show notes. So please come and check out Kimberly and all the other amazing speakers, and as well as the sponsors that are helping with this event to make it possible. So Kimberly, thank you so much for being on my podcast today and for being a special speaker at my summit.
You are very welcome. Thank you. I find it an honor to help and support women, so I'm excited for it.
Thank you again.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.